Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Speaker Brains with the most unprofessional music critics on the internet, Travis, Zach, and Josh. What up, everybody?
Hello and welcome back to the, what is this, 6th and final Zappa podcast episode?
Yeah, is it 6?
I think it's 6, yeah. As I've said every time for like the last 4 episodes, that's right, folks, you heard right. It is episode 6 over 3 years in.
Yeah.
And we are still not finished with this.
Yeah. Shit just gets in the damn way. But, it's been a minute since we done talked, man. What you been up to?
Well, mostly the same stuff as before, you know, work, family stuff, you know. A lot of stuff happened in 2021. A lot of it is not good. And so we just haven't had the opportunity to get together and do one of these in a long time.
Yeah, this year, damn, I think right around April, all the supply chain issues kind of fucked us up over at my job. So from April till at least the end of August, it was 7 days straight.
Yeah.
And damn, this whole year, and even after August, but August is where me and Stas went on our anniversary vacation, and then after that, we had every other Sunday off here and there, but it was still 7 days a week for the most part until here recently. And so this whole year is a complete blur. I have a decent amount of memories from January till April, but then after that, it's straight up going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home. So it's been a mess. Haven't been able to do nearly as many videos or record as many songs. Thankfully, we do like, you know, a week to 2 week long shutdown every year around Christmas. So I've been able to finish my solo album, at least recording the music. We still have to doctor up the album cover a little bit, then send it all to Spotify and all that shit. But hopefully...
Yeah, congratulations on getting that stuff up on streaming, you know.
Yeah, thanks. It's actually kind of damn easy. There's this website called DistroKid where I think you pay... Yeah, you only pay like...
I've heard of it. I've never used it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's like you pay... I can't remember if it's 20 a year or 40 a year. I can't remember what the fuck I paid. But they not only throw it on Spotify, but they throw it on every streaming service out there. Amazon and Apple and Deezer and Tidal, all that shit.
I got Apple Music, and I was able to find your stuff on there.
Yeah, so that...
It was one of those situations where it was one of those... The main reason I have Apple Music is that there was a year somebody gave me one of them Apple iTunes cards for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I used it to buy I think it was the free trial of the Apple Music, and I forgot to unsubscribe. But yeah, no, it's I feel you on that. Like, I got more out than you guys did, but I still, like, I was when I started out in February, I was like, this is gonna be the year I finally do a video a week, like I said I was gonna do in 2019, and I did it for a little bit, and then life got in the way, and so it's been like a video a month for the last, really since August.
Yeah, I'm trying to in my head come up with something that I can do by myself, instead of having to try and get me, Zach, and Josh, or even David. It's harder to get David over because he's got 2 kids and a wife, and then they moved out to LaGrange. So, I'm in my head. I'm trying to come up with something I can do by myself, but I think I might just bring cover-ups back.
That seems like a good thing. I will say it's been a minute since you guys did anything with copyrighted stuff. The bots have gotten to be such a pain.
Yeah, so that's what's holding me back is I'm trying to figure out how could I do that with using the least amount of the music in it as possible. I mean, back in the day, I was able to confuse the bots by playing 10 seconds of a part of a song and then fading it out.
Track and, you know, if you talk loud enough over it, the bot wouldn't notice a lot of the time. But now it's like you put a track where it's barely audible, and the bot is like, this belongs to Universal Music Group. So it's like I put them in the track intros, and I think pretty soon it's going to get to the point where I'm not even going to put them into the track intros.
Seriously, it's fucking ridiculous. But shit, I guess let's fucking get started on this shit.
Yeah, so this is, how many albums are we got today? I mean, it's
today we have, I got it pulled up. Today we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 albums. 9 albums.
That was a lot to listen to in like 3 days.
Yeah, because every one of them, just about, maybe 7 out of 9, 6 out of 9 are fucking double albums
that are over 2 hours long. I remember I was talking to you, I was texting you last night about this. I was like, dude, I'm finishing up ahead of our time. I mean, you're like, man, it is late for you to be on that. I actually finished up Civilization about 15 minutes before the call began.
Damn.
I listened to Yellow Shark late last night as I was going to sleep, and I'll go in more in depth. I have fallen asleep listening to Civilization Phase 3 before. I do not recommend it. It is not a good experience.
Damn. Yeah, that album will give you nightmares when you're awake.
That album belongs to a select few. I have a funny story about this. Again, I'll share when we get there. Albums that I have fallen asleep listening to, woken up in the middle of, and been having an anxiety attack because of that. But yeah, so we are doing. I think the whole run that we're doing is, so in terms of when it was recorded, the stuff we're doing ranges from like 1967 to I think like 1991, 92, 93 in the case of Civilization. But in terms of when it's released, it's about a 4-year window.
Yeah.
From 91, when Frank is, he's not doing well, he's sick, he's dying, to Civilization Phase 3, which is really, if we were going to be strict about it, we would end it with the Yellow Shark.
Yeah, as far as albums released in his lifetime, but...
Yeah, because Civilization Phase 3 is technically not released until almost a year after his death.
Yeah, and then... At the same time, though, it's the last bit of new music that he was recording as an official album.
Yeah.
that he had finished before he died. So, like, it kind of has to be added there. Like, to me, it begins the post-humanist phase, but the music isn't necessarily just random shit thrown together to keep the Zappa Trust earning money.
Exactly. Like, he was working on it. It exists. I have always kind of had a theory. Again, I'll get to it. We'll get to it when we get to it. But that album is in a way about his death, or at the very least, that there's a vibe about that hanging over that whole album.
Yeah.
But so we begin with. I actually thought we began with "You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore." Or actually, it begins with the best band you've never heard in your life.
Which is between, I call it the little. It's another trilogy of live albums where you got Broadway the Hard Way, Best Band, and Make a Jazz Noise Here, which are up there with, to me, as far as the 80s band goes. To me, it's up there with the level of quality as stuff like Zappa in New York and, what's the other one? Roxy.
Roxy and Elsewhere.
Yeah, like, to me, they feel like continuations of that. Whereas Roxy and New York, you've got the 70s band, and then with this one, you've got the 80s band. And to me, it's some of the best shit that the 80s band has put together, especially out of his 80s live albums. To me, because what do we have in the 80s as far as live albums go? Yeah.
You got Tinseltown Rebellion. You got if you want to count them, you have the Shut Up and Play Your Guitar albums.
Yeah.
You have Does Humor Belong in Music?
Oh yeah. Which is not.
That is the only reason that album should exist is that it has the long version of Let's Move to Cleveland.
Yeah. It's not a very essential kind of album. So out of all the 80s live, and I do like Tinseltown Rebellion a lot, but out of the 80s live albums, these three are the best.
I would agree with that, and it's especially, and it's like the last two episodes of this podcast have been pretty negative.
Yeah, and I hate it because I love the shit out of Zappa and all his crew, but man, I mean, people talk about how prolific he was as far as releasing music, but I'm like, man, the last, 5-6 years
the
of his
last
life.
10 years of his life.
Is mostly just live stuff, and it feels like a lot of overlap, because when you got three great 80s band live albums, like Band and Jazz and Broadway, but then you get the 80s band on a whole ton of the You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, and to me it's relatively boring.
It's redundant is what it is. There's a lot of redundancy in his 80s live stuff where it's like, you said this in one of the last episodes, and this is kind of a lead into the talking about the 88 live albums again, is that there's a lot of stuff, particularly that is introduced in like the late 70s after Zoodalures, that it's good music, but it gets, when you go through all of Zappa's live albums, it gets to be, how many times are we going to hear The Torture Never Stops?
Yeah, Torture Never Stops, Redunzel.
How many times are we going to hear Black Napkins?
Yeah. Blank Page. I mean, and they're all great fucking songs, but,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Fucking, I want to hear. The dude has so much different shit. And another thing is when they do go through early Mother stuff, it almost feels like they're trying to get it over with. Like, here's a Mother song, shut up, you know? Because they speed through them. They really speed through them, which, I mean, they're great, and I'm glad to have them on there, and I'm glad to hear them. But I'm like, man, you guys, there is so much other stuff you guys just aren't playing.
And a lot of that early Mother stuff is short.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, like, I'm glad, like, to get into the album, I'm glad he's not taken Who Needs the Peace Corps and using it as a vehicle for, like, a 12-minute Frank Zappa guitar solo.
Yeah.
But, like, no, like, that's one of the things I like about this album and Make a Jazz Noise Here, is that they bring back a lot more of those early Mother's tracks. Like this album has Who Needs the Peace Corps, and then it goes into the I'm wrong. I was thinking of the other one. It's the other one that goes into the classic Trouble Every Day, Orange County Lumber Truck, Oh No medley that they used to do a lot. But this one has a lot of really great tracks, like Mr. Green Jeans.
Yeah, Mr. Green Jeans is great on here.
And even the tracks on here that are tracks that were played to death are sort of refreshed by the horn section, and that's something that's true on Make a Jazz Noise Here as well.
Yeah, that's another reason I like them so much, is because, like you said, the songs are refreshed, and that's a thing that I always loved about Zappa live albums, is he always found a way to refresh those same old songs. And every live album felt like its own studio album, because the songs you may have heard are incredibly different than these studio versions. It's not like a Frank Zappa album is not like a Marilyn Manson live album or a Rob Zombie live album, you know.
Oh God.
Fucking, it's an experience all in itself, just like the studio albums. And but dude, like, if you gotta motherfucking love the covers on here, man. The Ring of Fire cover alone is worth getting into this album.
I wish I knew which member of the band is, but he's doing his cowboy voice.
Yeah, fucking, I fell into a burning ring of fire. Like, whoever does that fucking cowboy voice on these live albums, because I've heard them a lot before on, I can't remember which ones, but you get the hi-ho silver away.
I think that's on Broadway the hard way.
Yeah, because isn't that the same voice on Elvis Has Just Left the Building?
I think I believe it is. I believe it is. And then there's the weird conceptual continuity with I think Hi-Ho Silver as well, as if I remember correctly, it's on Cosmic Debris, where he's like, with the oil of Hi-Ho Silver.
Yeah.
The dust of the Grand Silver.
Oh my God, yeah. And then you gotta love the this is also one of the things where it's like they're talking about events, and they are satirizing events that were hugely in the news at that point in time.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're somebody who doesn't know, you're like, what is this about? You know, why are you guys shitting on this Swaggart guy? But yeah, the dude was a televangelist that got caught with a prostitute, and it was hilarious. And I just love the Lonesome Cowboy Jim version. And the what's the other one? Yeah, the Penguin in Bondage Swaggart version.
More Trouble Every Day.
Yeah, dude, it's great.
And you get Eric Dolphy Memorial Barbecue.
Yeah, which I would say for the '88 band, would you say that's actually pretty rare?
I would say for really any Zappa band post the original Mothers, that's a pretty rare track.
Yeah.
Because it's the thing about that track is that track, and really about the original Mothers as a whole, and we'll get to that when we get to You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Volume 5, is that the original Mothers, fittingly for a group who released an album called Freak Out, they had this freaky, wild, out there side to them that none of Zappa's bands afterwards really have.
Yeah, that is true. That original Mothers, man, that after Freak Out, man, they turned into, to me, probably still one of the greatest avant-garde fucking bands out there before and after. Like, nobody, I mean, there's avant-garde bands, but they're original Mothers, man.
There's nobody quite like the original Mothers of Invention who would, you could go from like a perfectly serviceable like bar blues song to like chamber pop, modern classical, to like high-pitched screaming while 4 saxophones do free jazz in the background. Yeah. And the thing is that like every Zappa band after them, with the exception of Flo and Ed, the Flo and Eddie band was they were looser and freakier than any of the bands after them, but like they were loose in the way that like a great classic rock band is loose. You know? Like, and then you get to Roxy and the Roxy era and the bands after that, and they're so controlled. Everything is so tight. They have their freak out moments, but it'll be like a drum solo or Frank Zappa doing a guitar solo for 12 minutes or like talking about sniffing panties from the audience. And it's not the same.
Definitely is not the same. And fucking, I'll talk more about Flo and Eddie when we get closer to the end of this one.
Yeah.
Funny thing about original Mothers is I don't play original Mothers all that much. Like if let's say me and Stas are chilling and I'm playing some music, I don't play original Mothers all that much because Stas is not really into annoying music. And fucking, I remember when I first got Weasels, I was playing it, and it just got to that one part with the donkey horn, and it's just, wah, 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 fucking, Stas is like, what the fuck is this?
No, there's not a lot of Zappa I can, like, play around people, like, even like, I would say it's like Cruising with Ruben and the Jets, Burnt Weenie Sandwich, some of Freak Out, but like even there, like people start raising their eyebrows when you get to the part of Cruising with Ruben and the Jets where it's like, stuff up the cracks, turn on the gas.
Yeah, because funnily enough, especially we're talking about original Mothers being wild and delightfully annoying, is Freak Out is probably the most accessible, easy to listen to album in Frank Zappa's discography, with a little handful of weird fucking moments. And I mean, and that's mostly if somebody likes 60s style fucking psychedelic blues kind of shit.
Yeah, it's like, and even like even what I would say is the most normal of the Flo and Eddie albums, like Chunga's Revenge, still has like Rudy Wants to Buy You a Drink, Just Another Band from LA has an entire track about child molestation.
Yeah, that's the Magdalena, right?
Yeah.
And, like, I hate it, dude, because I absolutely love the fuck out of that song. It's just best not to think about it.
Yeah, it's like the music is so good, but the lyrics, and it's the funny thing too is it's like you can tell that was like an earlier stage of Frank Zappa's humor.
Yeah, but the way I
Because,
look
like,
at it though is it's not necessarily Zappa or the musicians' point of view or them actually doing that.
Not at all.
It's the fucked up character that the song is about. So
Exactly. No. What I was getting at it is that you could tell it's an earlier stage in his humor because the joke of the song is about how pathetic the father character is.
Yeah.
And it is played so silly, which can be jarring in its own way. But like, if like 80s Frank Zappa made that song, it would have been unlistenable because it would have been just mean to everybody.
Yeah. But so
yeah,
back to
this album has a lot of just this album and the next album are like, they might actually be better than Zappa in New York. I think I might actually like these more than I like Zappa in New York.
I can agree with you on some days, because some days I'm listening to these and I'm like, man, these are so fucking good. And it's like, that's why I say these three are up there on the top level with New York and Roxy, as far as like his live albums that are acclaimed. These three definitely deserve to be up there in that spot with those two. Because not a lot of people talk about these three. You always hear people talk about New York or Roxy. But these three definitely deserve to be praised as much as those two. Especially with just the weird covers, man. Like,
oh yeah,
the cover of Purple Haze with Ike Willis doing the what is it?
The Thingfish voice.
Yeah, the thing, fucking Purple Haze, all in my mind. You know, it's like.
And you have like the it's almost like hip hop backing track.
Yeah, it's like this weird industrial hip hoppy fucking. Just it's creepy sounding.
And they even have the riff that ends the verses being like the weird 80s voice key sample sound.
Yeah, the
it's like it's really one of the most interesting arrangements of that song I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And even though it falls into Frank Zappa's weird thing he did in the 80s where like Frank Zappa, maybe it's because he was there and he saw everything go down, but like Frank Zappa seemed to like really, really hate that there were people who thought that 60s music was still good. like he really seemed to have a problem with that in the 80s. The one thing I do say about this album, because I remember I said in the last episode that this is the definitive version of Let's Move to Cleveland. I agree and I disagree, because like this version of Let's Move to Cleveland is so good, and Let's Move to Cleveland is one of the greatest like later Zappa compositions. But at the same time, Let's Move to Cleveland is almost like it's like 80s. It's like 80s Little House I Used to Live in.
Yeah.
It's a track that you could chop up into little bits, and we'll get to that when we get to part 5. Or you can do like a crazy long version of it. And I almost wish with this band that they would have done a crazy long version of it.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, before Let's Move to Cleveland, you've got a weird cover of Sunshine of Your Love by fucking Cream, which it flows in so well with the Purple Haze.
Yes, it does.
But then
it's almost seamless.
Yeah, and then how about to me, a really perfect cover of the Godfather theme Like, Jesus, man. And Bonanza, like throwing Bonanza in right before Lonesome Cowboy Burt.
Apparently, and this kills me because I would love to hear this. Apparently, they did a lot of these on this tour, and there was an entire medley they did out of Beatles songs.
Oh, dude, that would have been amazing.
That they were not able to release for legal reasons.
Yeah, that
I don't exactly know what the legal reasons are. I don't know how the law has changed because I know and I know this is a band you're into, so you'll probably know about this. Many years down the road, Phish, one of their live Phish releases is they did a Halloween show in '94 where they did the entire White Album.
Yeah, that's a Phish thing. They call it it's basically the music Halloween costume where they come out and on their Halloween shows and instead of playing their music, they play somebody else's and it's normally an album all the way through. Like I believe they've done God, what's the one Rolling Stones album? The Exile on Main Street.
Yeah.
You know, they've done tons of them.
One of them, I don't remember which one it was. I don't think it was the White Album one. They were gonna do Joe's Garage. The fans voted for Joe's Garage, but Phish were kind of uncomfortable with that.
I can see it because they kill Peaches and Regalia, and I believe that they'd be able to do it, but I think that's just too much that they would have to learn.
I think it's the vibe more than anything else. Is that Phish? I mean, their whole thing is it's that like blissed out mellow thing they inherited from the Dead, you know?
Yeah, they're more of a fun band. They're not really into doing dark material.
They're not mean like Frank Zappa.
Yeah. So I'm sure they could kill Joe's Garage, but as far as the lyrical content, I can see them not being too into it.
Because I'm sure they could do it. Because it's like you get stuff like I'm not sure they do like really difficult time signatures that much, but this. One of the things they do that has always impressed me, and it was funny, I didn't fully understand it until I listened to the live albums, was that the part of You Enjoy Myself where it goes from the second solo into the building and building and building part, in the studio on Junta, it sounds like a bad edit. But when you hear the live albums, it's like, oh, no, it's like, damn, they're actually stopping on a dime and moving into something else really, really fast.
Yeah, man.
But anyway, no, I don't fully understand why Phish were allowed to do that, but Frank Zappa wasn't. But it was 10 years later, so maybe there've been some legal changes. I don't know.
Yeah, but and then the Stairway to Heaven cover is it's played fairly straight. But it's damn good. I
think it's better for being played straight.
Yeah, because I mean which is fine because you have the only ones that are really played straight are the Godfather and Stairway. So it's like they got to goof off on all these other covers. So it's fine to have at least one of them played pretty straight.
And it's great to hear because it is such a different version of Stairway to Heaven. Like doing the guitar solo with the horns.
Yeah.
Like it is probably the best version of that song. I won't say that. It's the best cover of that song I've ever heard.
Yeah, that is the damn truth. So are we done talking about best band? Do you want to rate it?
I rate this. I haven't done this a lot. I'm gonna, but I'm feeling generous today. I'm gonna give this a 10.
Yeah, it's definitely a 10.
I'm gonna give this a 10. This and especially the next album are like, they are easily top 5 Zappa live albums.
Yeah, definitely. So, now we move on to You Can't Do That on Stage Volume 4. And it's one that, to me, is a lot better than 3.
I would agree with that. It's still like, it's not one I go back to, but it is a lot better than 3, because it is one where he gets really creative with the editing.
Yeah, because this one is up there with as far as the You Can't Do That on Stage albums with the 80s stuff. For the most part, it's probably one of the better ones for me.
I would agree with that, because what it feels like, the last 3, maybe less so 6, but like 4 and 5 really feel like Frank was trying to establish a continuum between every era of his music.
Yeah.
This is around the time, also, this is well beyond the purview of this podcast. This was around the time he released the Beat the Boots series.
Yeah.
Which I have a couple of digitally, mostly like, there's a 70s one, there's 2 that are like bootleg quality snippets of original Mothers shows. There's one with the 67 band, there's one with the 69 band, so I have a couple of those. And he seemed to be to an extent softening on his back catalog as he went along. But there's a lot, there is so much editing on this one, and really interesting editing too. Like, you go from something that was recorded in the 80s to something that was recorded in the 70s.
Yep.
And just all mashed together. Like, the version of Let's Move to Cleveland with Archie Shepp, that is like a synthesis of like 2 different recordings 10 years apart.
Yeah.
And that sounds perfectly composed, you know? Mm-hmm. You get like a cool Tinseltown Rebellion era version of Love of My Life. You know, Pound for a Brown. It's not, as I said, it's not one I go back to, but there's a lot of really cool stuff on this album.
Pound for a Brown. That's one of my favorites from the old days. Because that's on Absolutely Free, isn't it?
I think it's on Uncle Me. It's on Uncle Me.
Uncle
yeah,
Me,
and
Uncle Me.
It does follow.
Oh, I'm thinking of Brown Shoes Don't Make It.
Yeah. It follows that thing that you see a lot with the original Mothers tracks that do become live staples, like the big one like that is I think it's Cruising for Burgers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one on? Yes, it is. It's the one that's on Zappa New York. Like Cruising for Burgers, the ones that stay in the set because like he found a way to make them vehicles for soloing.
Yeah.
But like. So it's even though they're always short, it's fun to hear versions of those old Mother songs, and like you get a really good version of Teenage Win, you get a fun version of Disco Boy,
and a whole bunch of just fun random shit, especially on disc 2, like. Johnny Darling, Are You Upset, Little Girl of Mine,
The Closer You Are.
Yeah, just a bunch of fresh stuff that you haven't really heard. The Booger Man, you know.
The Tiny Sick Tears, which, you know, kind of blows me away because I'm like, we know he made fun of the Doors a lot in the 80s.
Yeah.
But it's like, damn, he was already coming at the Doors in the 60s.
Yeah.
Like...
Tiny Sick Tears.
Like, no, it's... This one is... It's not one that I go for a lot because, like, my thing with the 80s live bands is that it's like... It's like I said last time. I would have been happy if I was alive in the 80s, if I was around in the 80s, I would have been happy to see Frank Zappa live. You know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been complaining the way I am now listening to these albums 40 years later.
Yeah.
But, most of the 80s band is just not my thing, you know?
Yeah.
Until you get to the 88 tour.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff. It's just... There are some fine performances. We'll get to some on 5 and 6 there are some very good performances from the 82 and 84 bands.
Because this one has My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama. Which one has the studio version of that?
The studio version, is that this? Yes, it is. I think it's on one of the next ones too. Weasels has the studio version of that. It's on the, like...
Well, see, I've heard a studio version on one of these that, to me, there is no better version than the one that's on Weasels. Weasels, to me, is the definitive version of that song. And I don't know what it is, but every time I've ever heard them do it after Weasels, I am not that big a fan of it.
Even, I've heard live recordings from the era when that song was being written, or from before Weasels, that I don't like as much, because it's the thing. I was thinking about this a lot last night, and, you know, presumably some Zappa fan's going to correct me in the comments, and maybe I could be wrong, but from what I've heard of Zappa's live stuff, Zappa has a lot of overlap with the prog guys, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot of, he didn't like to be counted amongst that group, but there's a, you know, in terms of, like, fans, you know, I saw King Crimson in August. There was a bunch of former Zappa guys playing a Zappa tribute show as the opening act.
Rad.
I would guess probably half of the people there at that King Crimson show or more were also Zappa fans.
Yeah.
But the difference between Zappa and a lot of the prog guys is that unless there was a lot of studio trickery involved, the prog guys generally would try to do the full composition live.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas what Zappa would do a lot, and it's part of what makes him interesting live, but it can be a bad thing as well, is that Zappa would often, like, if there was a really difficult and cool sounding part of a song, unless it was, like, written in the Roxy era or after, very often he would just cut that out, do it straight.
Yeah.
And for me, and I think for you, a lot of what makes My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama fascinating is that weird, like, modern classical middle eight.
Yeah, especially the solo part with the...
with the, like, almost acoustic guitar part.
Mm-hmm. And, I don't know...
They don't do that on any live versions of that song.
Yeah, and that's what I hate about it, is because to me that's such an interesting part where each instrument gets its own little solo that is so different to what else is happening in the song, because the song is a pretty straightforward 60s rebel kind of, you know, teenage brat
song.
Yeah, and those solos they change the pace of the song and make it more interesting than what it could be without them.
And it's interesting, moving on to more stuff from the 60s about Willie the Pimp.
Yeah.
You know, which is not a bad version of Willie the Pimp.
Potato Head Body is a friend of mine.
Would have been happy to see it on live. I really like the way they blend it. If I'm remembering it correctly, the way they blend it into Montana, which is not even from the same show. You know?
Yeah.
It shows you how good he had gotten by that point. But it's like, that's another one. It's like you said about Advanced Romance in the last episode. It misses something without Captain Beefheart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because Captain Beefheart has that presence.
Yeah, which I'm actually glad we get a version of The Torture Never Stops on here with Captain Beefheart, which makes The Torture Never Stops. This is probably the first time where he's thrown it on a live album where I've been like, all right, cool, I'm not gonna skip this one.
Because it's different, which fascinates me, because the studio version on Doodalures and most of the live versions have a very specific, very slow sort of progression, and the words fit that progression really well. And what's funny is that here they play it as like one blues riff for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
But the Captain Beefheart lyrics follow the progression that it's going to have on the studio version.
Yeah.
So it slightly doesn't fit, but I like it because, again, Captain Beefheart has that presence, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
and some of the later Zappa singers, as much as I do like them, do not, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it's good. It's I don't remember what Church Chat is about. I presume it's probably, you know, talking smack about the televangelists, you know.
Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention this on Best Band You Never Heard, but that's the one with the sort of televangelist character coming in talking shit, like, you know, Democrat starts with a D, just like demon.
Like literal like modern era Facebook comment tier.
Yeah, that shit is great.
Observations.
Truck Driver Divorce is good on here too.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Teenage Wind is good. Very short, you know.
Now I can't remember.
Stevie Spanking. That's one of those ones where it's like, I was listening to these because I don't remember Stevie's. It probably is on 4 or on 3 or 4, but I don't remember it being on there. And I was like, I didn't realize this was such a live staple in this era, you know?
Yeah, and you know, Stephen Spanking is a song that I like a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
It's stupid fun. I need to play Truck Driver Divorce real quick because I need to see. I keep damn forgetting. What do we got here?
Truck Driver Divorce.
Oh yeah. Truck Driver Divorce. Yeah, okay. But I mean, there's really nothing else I can say about this one except for it's one of the better You Can't Do That on Stage albums. But like you said, I don't go back to it a whole lot. I don't think it's as good as 2, and it's not as interesting as 1.
I agree with that. Definitely, I agree with that.
But coming off of Best Band, it's definitely coming off of Best Band. If you listen to them chronologically, it is very underwhelming.
That's the problem with these, and it's really the problem with 6.
Yeah.
Because 6 is sandwiched between 5, which is like the third best one, and I don't remember whether it's and then I think between Ahead of Our Time.
Yeah, it's in between. 6 is in between 5 and
Psychotics.
Yeah, it's in between 5 and then Playground Psychotics is right after it, and then Ahead of Our Time. So it's like, we'll get to it. But
yeah, it's like, and then so now we are on Make a Jazz Noise.
Yeah. So what would you rate for though? I'm throwing a 7 on it.
6
Yeah.
and a half, maybe.
6 if I'm listening chronologically. 7 on a good day where
I can agree with that. But Make a Jazz Noise here, man.
Fucking another one, phenomenal. This one, Jazz Noise, like I said, that trilogy of the 80s, the 88 tour, they are as good as the Roxy and New York.
This one I think is the best of the three, for me at least.
If you, yeah,
where you're just like, this is a great band.
Yeah, if you like the sort of less delightfully annoying shit, and you really want to hear just an incredible
band,
yeah, just incredible fucking songs. That's what I like about all three of them, dude. Is all three of them, it's the same fucking tour, it's the same fucking band, but all three are really, really fucking different from each other. And they each focus on different great parts about what made Zappa and his crew so phenomenal. With Broadway, it's a lot of brand. Broadway. It's a bunch of new songs, and then Best Band, it's a bunch of covers and straight silliness. And this one is just some of the best songs from the early fucking era of Zappa, and some of the better songs from his 70s and 80s stuff.
Yeah. Some of the best like musicianship on any of his albums. Like this is the kind of band that you wanted to do, and it's great that he did it because it's the kind of band you wanted to do this kind of stuff. Like they do. I don't know for their knowing Zappa, they're probably not all from the same show, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you look at it right here. It tells you exactly where they were recorded and when. I mean,
but like the like no commercial potential medley he does, where he does "Let's Make the Water Turn Black," "Harry, You're a Beast," a really incredible instrumental version of "Harry, You're a Beast," which when we get to Ahead of Our Time, and I'll mention some of the other live stuff I've heard, a song that was played a lot was usually played instrumentally, part of a medley.
Yeah.
Going into the Orange County really short Orange County Lumber Truck. Another thing they did a lot with the original Mothers, shorter Orange County Lumber Truck. Going into
Oh No, and the Lumpy Gravy
theme from Lumpy Gravy,
which those songs, man, all together, dude, like that to me, whenever I hear it like that, it's such a treat. Oh, because the great thing about, especially a lot of those early Mothers songs, is, I've mentioned this before, they were so good at coming up with extremely technical music, but melodies that get stuck in your head for years, which is hard to do, because you can either have really great melodies or really incredible technical shit. Not a lot of people can mix both and have it work. And have it stick with your ass for fucking years. Most of these melodies, I mean, they run through my head at least once a fucking week. Fucking, I'm always humming damn like it's always in my goddamn head.
Well, and it's interesting too, because Orange County Lumber Truck, or I'll use this Orange County Lumber Truck as like sort of an umbrella for this whole like medley of songs he attaches to Orange County Lumber Truck over the years.
Yeah,
it's interesting because it's one of the first like Zappa staples where like Orange County Lumber Truck, they're playing Orange County Lumber Truck in like 68, 67. Staple throughout everything I've heard from the original Mothers, throughout Flo and Eddie, throughout Roxy, they're playing it in the 80s. And it's one of the few, like, Zappa pieces that don't get worn down by overplay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those tracks that become, like, live staples and fan favorites. When you try to go through all of Zappa, it kind of wears down on you.
Mm-hmm. Like for
that,
instance, like one of them from the old era, Trouble Every Day. I still like the Freak Out version the best. I like the live version that he does where it fits more of the Roxy era style with the funk and the horns and stuff. But I don't know. To me, the 60s blues jam vibe to me fits the context of the song better.
Yeah, and we'll get to that way more on the next album. But yeah, no, this one, the Black Napkins. Black Napkins, I love Black Napkins. Black Napkins is one of those tracks that over the years of live performance kind of wears on me.
Yeah, it's another one that is almost on every live album, you know.
But this version is so cool, and this might actually be my favorite live version of this song. The way the horns lead, you know, what's the opening guitar bit on the studio version and on most of the live version, the horns are doing. And it's so cool. You know, that's the kind of, it's such a simple rearrangement, but it totally changes the character of the song.
Yeah. Which is something they're really good at, and when they don't do it, I get a little bored. But I love King Kong on here.
This King Kong is such a weird King Kong, because there's, like, again, something to talk about coming up. There are multiple sort of iterations of King Kong.
Yeah.
There's two versions they played in the 60s, probably more, 60s Zappa files will fill me in, no doubt. There's a version that pops up, part of it pops up on Uncle Meat, part of it pops up in various other live things. It's just kind of they do the main theme, and it's just kind of a cool blues jam.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like a more composed version of King Kong that they actually did a lot, that has like two main themes and a reprise of the second main theme. The version on Ahead of Their Time is like that. But this one is really interesting because it's none of those. It is reggae King Kong.
Yeah.
And it's probably like, I don't always know what to make of Frank, because Frank Zappa loved reggae in the 80s. Like, he loved putting that reggae backbeat under things that were not written as reggae.
Yeah, and it made it interesting, especially, when they did Ring of Fire. Like, it's got a reggae vibe to it.
Well, even like on Joe's Garage, Lucille has messed my mind up. Like, the original version of that song from 1969 on Jeff Simmons' solo album of the same name is just a really cool blues track with horns.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool blues track with horns. But then you get it on Joe's Garage, and it has that slow reggae beat to it, and it really adds a whole other dimension to that song. And that's kind of what it does here too. Is just it somehow fits a lot better than I would have thought it would have.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's like, it's one of those sort of what the fuck kind of choices. Like, why did you do that, and why does it work?
Exactly. And then it goes into you were talking last time about stuff that somebody who was either not around in the 80s or had never read about the 80s would not understand at all. Star Wars won't work.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't know what the Strategic Defense Initiative was, you would listen to this and be like, is he talking shit about George Lucas?
Yeah.
Was he ahead of his time in making fun of the prequels? Like, this dude died 6 years before Phantom Menace came out, and he knew it would suck too.
Yeah.
But no, it's like no, he's making fun of this program that Ronald Reagan wanted to do, where it would be like missile defenses that would knock the nukes out of the air so that we could be free to nuke other countries. And he even says in the song, I think isn't there a point in the song where he's like, "Why the fuck are we still talking about it?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. But man, this is just a great album, man.
The Dupree's Paradise.
Yeah.
This version of Dupree's Paradise, like, what album does Dupree's Paradise first show up on? Is it Orchestral Favorites?
Yeah, I believe it's in that. I call it the Frank Zappa solo, like the 5-track Frank Zappa solo albums, where you had like the where you had orchestral favorites, and in the early 70s, Grand Wazoo, Wacka Jawacka, I believe, let me see, because it was also there with Sleep Dirt and Studio Tan.
Because it's on, there's a 23 version of it on the Helsinki concert.
Oh shit, it's actually not on Orchestral Favorites.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the first time it actually like shows up on a studio album is Bootleg Conduct Zappa.
Damn. Yeah, for some reason, I think of that song being in that era.
But they were performing it in the early 70s, though. Like, it's from the Roxy era originally, and it's just a phenomenal version of that song. A track that you mentioned last time, I didn't really pay attention to. I'm not sure where it's from originally. To be honest, I kind of lose track of where a lot of these tracks come from.
Yeah.
Particularly the ones in the 80s. Tamershi Dween is really good. Sinister Footwear on this album is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
This is another one where I think this one, I forget whether this is closer to the Them or Us or You Are What You Is version of Sinister Footwear, but like I think this is the best version of Sinister Footwear.
I can agree. It's a
okay, so it's the one from Them or Us. The one on You Are What You Is something different, which is its own very funny thing. Is like there is a second movement of Sinister Footwear. There's a third movement of Sinister Footwear. Where did the first one go?
Maybe check out Roxy or New York, or I'm thinking of Stinkfoot.
I think of Stinkfoot. I don't think he ever released the first movement. But again, Zappa fans will correct us, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can never claim to know it all.
No, absolutely not. And then Stevie Spanking. I really like Stevie Spanking on here. At least I think this is the one. Again, this is one I did not. When I was listening last night, the day before, I was like, wow, this is on a lot of stuff. I did not realize. Yeah, this is the one that has the like really cool harmonizing in the middle of it before it goes to the crazy solo part.
Yeah.
And then Cruising for Burgers.
Which is always a favorite whenever I hear it. That goddamn fucking melody, man. Or am I thinking of Dog Breath?
I mean, Cruising for Burgers has a melody like that too. But no, like this one, it's closer to the original Cruising for Burgers than the sort of Zappa in New York version he did a lot in the 70s and 80s. But it still has that cool extended solo bit where he gets to really, whip it out. It's really good stuff.
Yeah,
Really, really fun stuff.
Let me play it real
what's
quick.
The other one here? Strictly Genteel.
That one is always fantastic.
This like, I don't know if it's my favorite version of Strictly Genteel. That's one of those ones where like every version of Strictly Genteel I've heard is great.
Yeah, it's one of those, just like with Peaches and Regalia, and there are just some songs where I absolutely love hearing it every time it pops up. And I'm sure it's different for other people, because I always complain when it's like Redunzel or Torture, and I'm sure there's other people that love it when they hear those all the time.
Exactly. And this version of Advanced Romance is good too,
Mm-hmm. But
it's one that, as you said, it loses something when you don't have Captain Beefheart.
Uh-huh.
But by this point, Captain Beefheart had retired from music.
Yeah.
He had multiple sclerosis. He was sick, and he didn't. I also think he didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
There's a may or may not be an apocryphal story. I choose to believe is a true story that Bono from U2, some point in the 90s, like sent him a letter and was like, "Hello, please collaborate with us." And Captain Beefheart was like, "Dear Bonzo, no."
Oh shit! But I'm gonna play "Cruising for Burgers" real quick.
That's true. I choose to believe it is.
That would be great. But I'm gonna play "Cruising for Burgers" real quick, just to sort of refresh my damn mind. Yeah, I think I'm thinking of Dog Breath variations and all that.
That one. I mean, all of those like interconnected pieces on Uncle Meat are all like incredible stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy because they flow in together so well that I forget what part it is.
Yeah, I do that sometimes too. Absolutely, like it's. But no. What else? The new wave, or new age version of the Black Page, I really like too. The Black Page is another one. It got played a lot in the 80s. So it is a really good composition, but the era when it got played a lot is not one of my favorite eras of Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's really good. I like it. This album, this is another 10 for me.
Yeah, this one definitely is a 10, because I can't remember, I might have said Broadway was a 10. I don't know if we were rating. We never keep it consistent as far as rating albums goes, but
we've been rating them since the 4th episode, I think. It's the 3rd episode, I believe. You know what? I don't remember. Either the first 2 or the first 3 we did not rate. From I believe the one where we talked about the Roxy era onwards, we've been rating them.
Probably. But yeah, those 3 live albums, like I've said since the beginning of this episode, definitely worth not looking over.
Those I almost feel like because the thing about those albums, I feel like they would be very, very highly regarded if they weren't so deep into the part of his career that most people don't like.
Yeah, exactly, because they were released so close to the abundance of live albums that he was just dropping out. That,
he was just absolutely just pouring those out.
Yeah, and so you could easily say they get lost in the shuffle. I don't really know the common consensus on these 3 albums. I don't know.
Zappa fans really, really like them.
So yeah, see, I don't know too many other Zappa fans other than you and maybe Frank.
But that's a thing where it's like you and I's take the 80s stuff. A lot of people who are like casual Zappa heads don't like the 80s stuff, but like a lot of hardcore Zappa fans love the 80s period, you know?
Yeah, and like me too. Like I love a lot of the 80s period, but at the same time, I can definitely see the flaws and the just the overwhelming kind of feeling of it. Like when I was buying all of these a couple years ago, once I got to the 80s period, that's where I started to sort of be like, God damn, I still got 10 more of these to fucking buy.
You know, it was the same for me when I was getting into Zappa, you know, getting to be almost 10 years ago. It was exactly the same for me. It was like I got up to like You Are What You Is so good, and then I was getting those albums, and it would be like I really have to, you know. There are really, like, as you said, there are really, like, 10 more albums, 15 more albums. Like,
yeah. Like, that's why when I got toward the end, man, and I was like, I'll get to it. I'll eventually buy You Can't Do That on Stage 6.
Yeah. No, it's like, I get the feeling that a lot of fans like the 80s stuff more than we do.
Huh?
I get the feeling a lot of Zappa fans like the 80s stuff more than we do.
Yeah, I can see it.
The mid-80s stuff. I think there's something to be said also for, it's like I said, a lot of guys who were there at the time, probably a lot of people became Zappa fans in the 80s, you know.
Yeah.
He had a certain level of, his records weren't selling as well as they had in the 60s and 70s, but he had Valley Girl. He had a certain level of pop cultural prominence. You know, he was on an episode of Miami Vice.
Yeah.
He's in an episode of Ren and Stimpy.
Yep.
You know, he was out there in the 80s in a way, in the broader pop culture, in a way that maybe he was in the 70s, but, you know, also, you know, in the 80s, the machinery of pop culture was more evolved than it was in the 70s, you know. You had MTV, you had all that stuff. It's part of why I've said one of the last episodes, it's a shame he hated MTV so much, because I think in a different world he could have been really well suited for it.
Mm-hmm.
You look at stuff like 200 Motels, you look at stuff like the weird ass animations he had made for the Baby Snakes video or movie. It's like, this was a visually minded guy, and the fact that he just kind of wrote off MTV altogether is both, it's understandable, but at the same time, it's like, it's a missed opportunity, you know?
Yeah, definitely is. All right, back after the piss break. So,
the only podcast that tells you why we go on break.
Yeah. So that was Make a Jazz Noise here. Now we're on, You Can't Do That on...
Volume 5,
yeah,
isn't it?
Volume 5. Now, we mentioned this in the last one, that the whole You Can't Do That on Stage series is an interesting concept that in many ways succeeds in what it was trying to do, and in many ways kind of just, I don't want to say fails, but to me doesn't live up to what it is trying to do. And this one, to me, is a little of both, where to me, the first disc is the best disc.
Oh yeah.
Disc 1 with the 69 and 66 stuff, the early wild ass, delightfully annoying mother shit is on full display. It is very similar to Weasel's Ripped My Flesh, which is a big reason why I love the fuck out of the first half of 5. Because I love the shit out of Weasels, and this one feels like a continuation of the Weasels thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it gives you, even to this day, we don't have a ton of sort of a window into what the original version of the Mothers sounded like.
Yeah.
You know, there's I think, I don't know if he released it officially. There are bootlegs of right after Freak Out, that era, that are in circulation. You can hear them if you want. I don't know. I don't really know if he's released anything officially, but the Downtown Talent Scout is really cool because it's that early phase around Freak Out when they still had more of a R&B tinge to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that like mid 60s West Coast blues rock sound.
Yeah.
is really good, and it's you know, you go into Charles Ives, which you know I know it as the blimp on Trout Mask Replica.
Yeah.
You commented in, I think it was our second episode, that Frank spliced part of that into the extended version of it's not, is it, did you get any on you, or is it the second track?
It is. It's on one of them. I damn sure can't remember, but I'll never forget when, because like I said, Weasels was the very first Zappa album that I had ever got a hold of, and then a couple years later I found Trout Mask Replica, and when I heard that bit, I was like, holy fuck, this shit is on the goddamn Zappa thing.
Yeah.
So it's one of those. It's one of those weird, sort of Saint Elsewhere kind of, connections where, in a way, you could say Trout Mask is in the same universe as Mother's Weasels, especially with how wild and insane Trout Mask is.
Yeah, absolutely. They were released on his label. It's like, you know, they've got not so much Trout Mask Replica, I think, as the second album. The second album he did in that style, Lick My Decals Off Baby. Lick My Decals Off Baby was made by a slightly different version of the Magic Band that has one or two people who were in the Mothers in it.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the Mothers had broken up by that time.
Yeah, because I think I still got to get more Beefheart, because I still only have Safe as Milk and Trout Mask. I've got to get his other stuff, but I've heard some of Lick My Decals, and it's like it reminds me of a mixture between the more accessible Safe as Milk stuff with the weird Trout Mask kind of shit.
It's like a tighter and more controlled Trout Mask Replica is the way I would describe that album to somebody. Like, there are ways in which that album is weirder than Trout Mask Replica, in that there are a few songs on Trout Mask Replica that have something akin to choruses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of Lick My Decals Off Baby has no choruses whatsoever. You know, and it's like, it takes the thing that Trout Mask Replica does, where you'll have, like, song fragments, like, happening after each other at the same time, all over the place. There are tracks on there that take that to even more extreme than Trout Mask Replica. There are tracks that also kind of, as you said, kind of step back from Trout Mask Replica, and I think it's telling that very shortly after Lick My Decals Off Baby, within an album, you get the Spotlight Kid, which is like pretty much just like Captain Beefheart doing avant-garde blues album. Like, I mean, technically, you could argue that's what Trout Mask Replica is, but it's like, it's blues rock with a Captain Beefheart weirdness. It's not like Captain Beefheart doing a blues rock deconstruction of all the music made in North America between 1800 and 1969.
Yeah. But, yeah, so this first disc is really the only reason anybody should listen to 5.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, yeah. This first disc has some really, really cool stuff on here.
The Mozart Ballet, the piano drum duet.
Chocolate Halva.
Yeah, the Little March.
Like,
Where's Johnny Velvet? The return of the Hunchback Duke.
Which, that one, if I remember correctly, that is a Little House I Used to Live in fragment.
Ah.
As I think is...
Hello?
As I was going to say, I can't remember which one it is. I was just listening to it. I can't remember whether it's... I thought it was Baked Bean Boogie, but I don't think it is now. There's another one on this album. There's a fragment of what eventually becomes Little House I Used to Live in. Because it's interesting, because it is like Little House I Used to Live in is interesting because it is such an epic song, and yet when you really look into it, the recording that's on Burnt Weenie Sandwich is like one of the most Frankenstein tracks that Frank Zappa ever did.
Yeah.
Like, and it shows, I think, that like when he does Little House I Used to Live in live, it's about 6 minutes long, and it's the part of the song that is called Return of the Hunchback Duke here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's. I really like the Frank Zappa, Jimmy Carl Black drum duet. I love underground freak out music.
Yeah.
You know, theme from Run Home Slow. You know, it's really good stuff. You know, right there gives you a window into how fucking weird a Mothers of Invention concert could be in the 60s.
Yeah, because...
Like, it starts off with one of them making sex noises, and then at some point, they mix in, like, what I'm pretty sure is audio from a porno into it. And they're doing, like, jazz freakouts. It's like, it is some wild stuff.
Yeah, because what I love about early live Mothers is that, you know, you're not gonna get a whole lot of studio tracks. It is a time for improvisation and on the fly fucking weirdness and just a whole lot of goddamn fun.
Yeah, it's like you're gonna get some weird stuff. You're gonna get some extended instrumental workouts. You're gonna get some, you know, depending on the show, you're gonna get some really weird stuff. Like if we ever do a follow-up talking about like archival stuff, we gotta talk about I think it's Road Tapes Venue 1, which is a basically full concert from 1968 that was released many, many years later. where they do like an 8-minute version of an Edgar Varese track.
Yeah.
It's like, early Mothers Live is some wild stuff, and it's like, as much as I'm sometimes like, man, I want to hear the studio tracks, like, to have been in that audience, seeing weird stuff happening on the stage, you know, must have been quite an experience.
Definitely. But, so disc 2. Disc 2 is where I lose it.
Disc 2 is okay.
It's just serviceable. You've got Easy Meat, The Dead Girls of London, Shall We Take Ourselves Serious, What's New in Baltimore, Mogio, Dancing Fool, Redunzel.
I do like Shall We Take Ourselves Serious.
Yeah. But it's one that I never ever listen to disc 2 because I'm like, I can hear these songs anywhere else.
The only good thing, like, well, I shouldn't say that. It's all serviceable. The only great thing on disc 2 is how it ends.
Yeah, the Geneva
Farewell.
farewell.
In Geneva, where he was apparently so pissed off that dudes were throwing cigarettes onto the stage that he just canceled the concert.
Yeah, he said, house lights,
and you see
show's
you catch
over.
it on tape, he's like, house lights, the show's over.
Yeah, which I think probably would have been better used as the final track for Volume 6.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I will definitely agree with that.
Because that way it can be like, yeah, not only is the show over, but that's the end of this album series as a whole.
So how do you rate this one?
This one is weird, man. Disc 1 alone is a 10 for just that peek into a style of Zappa that we haven't had since the fucking 60s, since before the Flo and Eddie era. And the Flo and Eddie era is very similar to this era of Zappa, but the Flo and Eddie is its own different thing, where it's way more sort of focusing on Flo and Eddie.
It's more of a stage show.
Yeah.
You know?
And whereas this is more sit down and enjoy the art.
Yeah. Yeah, it's...
But packaged with...
this one, I think overall I give it like it's a 6, but it's a 6 with a big asterisk attached to it.
Yeah, because
it's like, the first half is a 9, the second disc is like a 5.
Yeah, because packaged with disc 2 is, to me, completely needless. There is no reason for any of that to be on here. Maybe disc 2 should have just been more Weird Mothers shit instead of the 82 Zappa stuff. I mean, it's the same shit that we get everywhere. Black Page, Doreen, Pound for a Brown on the Bus, fucking, Advanced Romance again. It's those same songs. Disc 1 is so different compared to all of the 80s, and especially the ones in this series. Disc 1 is up there with what's happening on the Volume 1 for me, where Volume 1 feels more like a showcase of the Flo and Eddie stuff. This one is a showcase of the early Mother stuff, and that's why I like this one so much, is just because there's nothing on here that I've heard a million times.
This is one where it's like especially at the time, because this is at a point where, unless you were a hardcore, I mean, I guess you'd have to be a hardcore Zappa fan to buy this in the first place. But unless you had picked up Beat the Boots, which I believe was like a 5-disc box set.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way you would have heard Early Mothers live because Frank didn't release any live albums for the Early Mothers. The closest thing you have is Weasel's Rip My Flesh, but Weasel's is kind of heavily reworked. There's a lot of studio tracks on Weasel's.
Mm-hmm.
So this would have been the first time a lot of people probably heard live Early Mothers.
Yeah, they definitely shouldn't have been. They probably definitely weren't expecting disc 1. So it's almost like here, I'm gonna for you crazy Zappa fans, I'm gonna give you what you probably wanted. But disc 2, this is for all you guys who just want to hear Easy Meat again.
Yeah.
But disc 1 alone is a 10. Packaged together with disc 2, it goes down to a good 6. Because disc 2, it's completely needless. Completely, no reason for it to be here.
Yeah. And then volume 6.
Volume 6. So we're on 6 now.
This is one where, like, I had conflicting emotions on this one. To me, it's like the opposite. Through most of disc 1, I was bored to tears. I was not having it. And then disc 2 starts, and I'm still kind of not having it, but I'm more invested. There's more cool stuff on here that we haven't heard in a long time, or creative interpolations. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I love that he puts a deep cut from the 200 Motels soundtrack on this album.
Yeah, which one is that? The finale?
No, that's in there too. Shove It Right In.
Yeah, Shove It Right In. That's the
She Painted Up Her Face.
Yeah, man. Fuck. 200 Hotels. I am so glad that they finally got to re-release it properly. Which I've had the original release for a couple years now, but I'm not gonna drop money on the 6-disc version, but I would probably get the 2-disc version just to see if it sounds a little better. But man, it's about fucking time.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I was gonna say that the 200 Motels soundtrack has always sounded a little bit rough.
Yeah, it is pretty rough, but damn it, are there some great fucking songs on it. Especially for the Flo and Eddie stuff, it is fucking phenomenal.
Well, it's the hard thing about 200 Motels is that, like, it was missing for so many years. Like, for so many years, unless you pirated that stuff, or you bought it on vinyl, or you were one of the dudes who was lucky enough to buy it when it came out, or got lucky on eBay, you couldn't get it, and it was like, it is arguably the centerpiece of the whole Flo and Eddie era.
Yeah, half a dozen provocative squats.
Yeah. So for them to throw in, you know, is it not? Yeah, it's not 1 but 2 deep cuts. Actually, 3 deep cuts from that album. Well, Strictly Genteel was more of a staple, but still, you know.
Yeah, and you also get Cowboy NATO.
That is the way that starts off as like an 80s track and then turns into Flo and Eddie halfway through and Jimmy Carl Black.
Yeah.
Is like, that is some of the most impressive stuff that is on any of those albums.
Yeah, this album is there's a lot of stuff.
I don't have a lot to say about this one.
There's like a lot of interesting stuff happening on this album, especially with the way the track sequence is because you'll get a song from the early 70s, and then right after you'll get an 80s one, and then it's just all over the place. It is everywhere. And the track choices, like Camarillo Brillo, you know, that's a great song. This one for me is it's one of the better releases in the you can't do that on stage, but at the same time there's stuff on here that I'm like, you know, this didn't have to be on here. Like Miss Pinky didn't have to be on here. It's like it's such a half kind of album for me, because I mean Dynamo Hum's on there. There's songs on here that I love that you don't really get on some of his other live albums. I mean, fuck, I don't know. It's weird. I mean,
I agree with that. I'm kind of glad we're on the same page here, because it's like.
Because how do you follow Alien Orifice with Catholic girls? You know what I mean? That's
yeah, it's like.
that's
like,
so.
How do you go from? I mean, I suppose they probably did live at the time. How do you go from trying to grow a chin to take your clothes off when you dance?
Exactly. It's such a baffling kind of track sequence to me, where it's like it sort of kind of keeps you on your toes.
And I mean, like, I love Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance. I'm so glad it's on here.
Yeah.
You know, I especially find it fascinating how, you know, it's like this is an era when there was like Jean-Luc Ponty, I think, was, or no, it was who was it? There's a violin player on this version of Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance. There's a violin player in the midsection of it, and it's like, that's such an interesting treatment for this track.
Yeah.
But so then it's like, it comes after like 3 Zappa staples from the 80s, so it's like,
it's just weird, because you get Illinois Enema Bandit, you know, which is like, you know, heard that a million times. But then you get other shit that, you know, you don't hear all the time. It's just a weird mix of tracks to me, which at the same time makes it really good, and then at the same time it makes me be like, yeah, you know, nah.
Exactly. It's like I want to rate this higher than the last two, but I really can't.
Like, part of me is an 8, and then part of me is a 6.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna go with a 6. I think I'm gonna go with a 6 for this one. I do. We should point out the entire first disc is based around is all sex tracks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it is worth noting, as Wikipedia notes, that is that guy Kidding or what?
Yeah, that's the
Peter Frampton.
Yeah,
track.
with the I'm
and then
in
he
you.
does later on. They do an early version of "I Have Been in You," which is always a fun Zappa song.
Yeah.
Because it's just so overt, but at the same time it's vulgar, but it's playing it off like it's the most normal thing imaginable.
Yeah, what's so funny is that's one of them things where it's one of those Zappa jokes that I'm not in on the joke because I've never heard that Frampton song that I know of.
Exactly. I have heard, I mean, like everyone else who has listened to 70s music, I've heard Frampton come, or actually, like anyone else who had a parent who was alive in the 70s, I have heard Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that Frampton song, which I think is I'm in You, is the Frampton song.
I'm in You. But yeah, I think I'm gonna stick down to a 7 for this one.
I'm gonna give this one a 6.
But next we have a real interesting album in Playground Psychotics that part of me absolutely loves this album, and then part of me is like, just get on with it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel too.
Because it's all of the audio tracks are, to me, it's one and done. It's interesting to, you kind of feel like you're on the bus with them or in the room with them, you know, but at the same time, it's like, all right, you're giving me a full album of Flo and Eddie stuff, and most of it is just talking shit, you know, just hanging out. But I love the concept, like a typical day on the road, you know. It feels like everything leading up to a show, everything in between a show, everything after a show. It's an experience kind of album.
Yeah, I pretty much totally agree with that. This is an album where it's like, it is so fascinating because Flo and Eddie, we talked about this in the Flo and Eddie review. We are both of us very positive towards Flo.
Yeah, I am a massive fan of that era, and I hate that it was so short, but at the same time, I don't see it lasting past where it ended. I can see that shtick.
I don't really either.
Yeah, I can see that shtick just getting real tired. So I'm glad we have that era, and I do hate that it was cut short, but it might have been for the best. Because even like the Flo and Eddie albums on their own, the actual albums that Flo and Eddie did after Zappa ended that era, those albums are really good. You even get the Zanzini brothers on those Flo and Eddie solo albums. So in a weird way, those Flo and Eddie albums, they sort of continue the Zappa, Flo and Eddie era. Maybe not as good. Hell, maybe even in some ways, if you're somebody who is annoyed by the Flo and Eddie Zappa era, their albums on their own...
They're going to be more annoyed by their albums.
Yeah, probably. But, yeah.
Because, like, the Zappa albums, at least, they have that really good music, and it's... You and I both really like this era of Zappa. It's an era of Zappa I find fascinating, because it's like, it's Zappa... You know, it's Zappa after the original Mothers is over. He's trying to do what's... In a way, for as much as he talked shit about what was popular, it's him trying to do what was popular at the time.
Yeah, because like I've said, there a lot of that Flo and Eddie stuff, you could easily hear it being staples of classic rock radio, but it is not there.
There is an alternate universe where you turn on your like classic rock station, and you hear "Tell Me You Love Me."
Exactly. Exactly. And it baffles me that these songs aren't classic rock staples, because they are on par, and if not better, than a lot of the classic rock shit that was happening at the time. Well, hell, to me they are better because I haven't heard them, you know, every time I turn the radio on since I was 6.
Exactly. No, I agree. Like, it is so weird. Because it's like, a lot of it is trying to be what the, classic rock of that era, that heyday of classic rock at the dawn of the 70s. It's trying to be that stuff, and it's trying to be a commentary on that stuff.
Yeah.
And yet, it never really seem to find the audience that I think it kind of would have needed. Like,
but at the same time, it's probably a good thing because, you know, we probably wouldn't have the abundance of phenomenal shit that came after.
Yeah, it's like if this stuff had found an audience, the Roxy era, we probably wouldn't have the Roxy era.
Because I always kind of feel like Frank Zappa would do something for a little while and then probably get bored and move on to something else, like out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it would have been something like that would have happened, and we would have missed out on a lot of the great music that we did get. But to have, like you said, to have a document of that era, it's so weird because, like, I so agree with you. It's like you said, there's a part of me that is like, this is really, really, really cool. There's another part of me that's like, why didn't you just give us a show, Frank?
Yeah. Because the audio tracks they're interesting, getting a peek on these dudes just being themselves instead of the show versions. It's interesting.
Exactly.
And the 200 Motels interview at the end of the album is real interesting too, because 200 Motels is such a very untalked about Zappa era all in itself as well, because you know, you never feel like all this Zappa stuff gets praise all over the place, but nobody ever talks about the 200 Motels era. I mean, hell, when we watched the DVD, I'm like, damn, man, this is hard shit to watch.
It feels like something that more people would know about. Like, even that people would be like, this is bad, you know? Like, the 200 Motels movie feels like something that Brad Jones would have done a review of in, like, 2012.
Yeah.
Like, I know that because he did do I know that it would be on his wavelength because he did do a review of the fucking Flo and Eddie Down and Dirty Duck movie.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I would expect 200 Motels to be something people know about because it's like Frank Zappa made a head movie, you know?
Yeah. Like
but
even
it's
with
very,
that
very
re-release, you know, I think I keep forgetting what company owns that album, but it just seems like they throw it on a cheap DVD every 10 to 15 years just to keep the rights of it. Like when they did the re-release a couple years ago, the version of the DVD I got, you know, that thing isn't on Blu-ray, it's not on 4K, there's no special features. You know, I mean, I would love to see a fully preserved and remastered version of that movie.
Yeah, I would too. It's like, but yeah, no, this album, I don't really even know how to rate this album.
Yeah, because it's not really. It just feels like a document.
Because the music is really good. Again, like, in this era, I would be like, if I was a Zappa fan who liked the Flo and Eddie era in the 90s, but like had never gotten to see him live, I would have been amazed to hear like Flo and Eddie versions of all of these, you know, like classic Mother songs like Concentration Moon and Status Back Baby.
Because I like hearing classic Mother songs from the original Mothers done with the Flo and Eddie stuff. They throw a similar yet different vibe on that shit. And for some reason,
the original version of Wonderful Wino.
Yeah, because for some reason, Flo and Eddie fit perfectly with that original Mother's vibe. Maybe not on the technical aspect, but on the silliness and all that, you know. They fit perfectly, and whenever they do early Mother's tracks like that, it's interesting, and it's pretty much as good
Yeah, but at the same time, so much of this album is just talking.
Yeah, it's just a lot of audio tracks of them hanging out, talking shit, and the whole, oh yeah, he snorts with the best of them.
Yeah, like, this album, a lot of this album feels like it was made, because this was around the time, Frank was kind of bitter at Flo and Eddie for a while, because there was this whole thing, I don't have the full details of it, where, like, the band broke up after he got injured. He kind of thought they would stay together and go back on the road together. That didn't happen.
Yeah,
but like he made up with them in the 80s. And I guess there was some talk at some point in the 80s of Flo and Eddie touring with Zappa again. But I guess what happened was that, this is how it was explained to me, Flo and Eddie had reinvented themselves, kind of cleaned up their image, become like semi-respectable dudes again in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they couldn't put that in jeopardy by going on tour with Zappa singing about dicks again.
Yeah. And another thing I want to talk about on here is this version of Billy the Mountain.
Yeah.
Which is, it's really good. They're slightly different things. The thing I love about Billy the Mountain is you could tell it is a heavily, it's an improv show. But to me, it's definitely better on Just Another Band from LA because it sounds better, it feels tighter. The version on here doesn't sound as sonically good, and it's a little looser. There are different moments here and there, but I don't listen to this version as much as the LA version.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the Billy the Mountain on Just Another Band, as you said, shorter, sounds better. I think it benefits for being shorter.
How much shorter is it? I mean, I can't remember.
It's like 6 minutes.
Are you really?
Yeah, the Just Another Band from LA version is like, I think like 24 minutes. Let me check. Yeah, it's 24, almost 25 minutes.
Okay.
The version on here is 30 and a half minutes.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, it is a much tighter. You could tell that on the LA version that they've probably worked out a lot of the kinks. The LA version is probably one where they've probably done it so many times that they've figured it out. Where on this one,
I would think so.
Like this one feels more like an early version of that, but who knows? I wasn't there. Maybe
Exactly.
Maybe they did do longer versions after the LA version. Who knows? But it's interesting to get another version of Billy the Mountain. Billy was a mountain. Ethel was a tree growing up on his shoulder. This is weird.
Yeah, it's like one of the things I like about Billy the Mountain, and the reason I think they are more available now. But I've always wished there were more Billy the Mountains out there because, like, it seems like a song that was customized a lot to wherever they were.
Yeah.
Like the part of the song specifically where it's like, the mountain is destroyed, thus and such.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They seem to have customized that a lot based on wherever they were.
But, so, there's not much else I can say about, Playground.
No, there's not a lot I can say about it either, so.
And as far as rating it, I can't really give it a rating. Like we said, it's very much just a document. But if you want to hear Flo and Eddie era Zappa shit, definitely pick it up.
Yeah, I would recommend this. I haven't fully listened to it but they just last year released a big thing of Flo and Eddie album live stuff.
Are you talking
I
about
think it's
70?
Yeah, I think it's Road Tapes Spot Venue 3. A little bit earlier in the Flo and Eddie era, but that's a good document of like the Chunga's Revenge era of Flo and Eddie bands.
So what's on? Because they've been doing so many Zappa box sets here in the past couple years that I am not too interested in getting a hold of, except for the Mother's 1970, the 4-disc live and studio sessions recordings. But I don't know which Mothers is on that.
Yeah, I don't know, because that's the. I mean, we can solve this with Google, but the hard thing is that there was, I believe, in 1970 there was a version of the band that was put back together. That was kind of like half Flo and Eddie, half original Mothers.
Yeah.
I believe. I do not know if that's what's been documented. Let's go on to the Zappa website. I'm sure that'll have some information. Ainsley Dunbar, George Duke, Ian Underwood, Jeff Simmons, Flo and Eddie. So yeah, so that's the Flo. It's not the exact Flo and Eddie, necessarily the definitive Flo and Eddie lineup, but it's a lineup, so it is Flo and Eddie.
Okay, yeah. That's getting annoying with me, man, is like, do we really need... I am not going to lie, I miss the re-releases they were doing, like Meat Light and Lumpy Money. I miss that style of Zappa re-releases because I would like the 40th anniversary of New York, but not in a $80, 5-disc box set.
Yeah, it's good for me to an extent because like I have this project that the idea is not mine. It's based on something this other dude on YouTube did for King Crimson. I have an idea, this idea for a project. Originally, it was going to be for Zappa. More recently, I've evolved towards. I think it would be funny to do it for Fish. It's like a live album and a studio album. For every, you do like live album and a studio album. You just go through, and you pick the live album and you do the studio album, and it gives you, for these bands that were very live focused, it gives you a way to talk about them that actually is sort of quasi-complete.
Yeah.
But so it's good for me in that sense, but in terms of like, and because most of it's on streaming, but by the same token, it's like, as a physical media guy, I don't want to spend like $80 on like a 9 CD Frank Zappa live box set.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point in my life, but not right now.
Yeah, seriously. So now we're moving on to Ahead of Their Time, which is another incredibly interesting album that is early Mothers, because we have Jimmy Carl Black and Ian Underwood, Don Preston, Roy Estrada. Like, we got a lot of those fucking early guys on here.
Yeah, this is the 1968 version of the Mothers, and this is you said that this is the one where it's like every album we've talked about so far has been a double disc, been 2 hours long.
Yeah.
This is the one where I want this to be 2 hours long.
Yeah.
And it's like, from what I gather, it would have been, but Frank heavily edited this down, and the thought that people I've spoken to have had is that he probably did it because, like, Frank Zappa in his later years was not on particularly good terms with I think, any of the members of the original Mothers. There was a legal dispute in the late 80s about royalties.
Yeah. And that's why he fucked up a lot of those early albums.
Yeah, that allegedly he had not given them royalties, no?
Yeah.
So there's always been some talk about that. So the deal with this is that the entire first half, the first 10 tracks, it is a sort of musical theater thing performed with the BBC Symphony Orchestra of this play called Progress. And the orchestral stuff is really, really cool, but it does not really translate to audio.
Yeah.
And I am very surprised that they have... I would imagine they have video footage of it, but I don't think it's ever been released.
Yeah, because Progress is incredibly interesting, and I like the Progress suite a lot, but at the same time, there's a lot of visual cues that you're missing out on, and to me, I don't think it sounds the best.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I can hear you. The
Okay.
entire album has kind of a rough sound.
Yeah, it really does, and I think I like it because it's just early Mothers doing early Mothers shit, but a lot of it isn't the best sounding early Mothers shit. But it's definitely worth checking out because of the Progress suite and those early Mothers tracks at the end of the album.
Yeah, it has. They're very short, but it has a lot of cool versions of stuff. You know, it has sort of It has the version of King Kong I mentioned earlier, where it's like there's a version of King Kong that's just like a cool jazzy blues jam. There's a version of King Kong that has like 2 head melodies.
Yeah.
And a reprise of this one, and I think that's my favorite. They did this version of King Kong a lot. In fact, from what the recordings I've listened to, it sounds like they actually did it more than the one where it's just a jam. But it's a really, really fun version of King Kong. I like that theme that they add in, the stop-start drum stuff. It's really good. I like it.
Oh yeah.
And it's the first. I don't know if it's the first time, but this was the first album that I heard, that live album of Zappa's, where I realized that, so Help I'm a Rock, they would play Help I'm a Rock and it would turn into Transylvania Boogie.
Yeah. Which is interesting because...
Yeah, it is.
Because Help I'm a Rock is such a weird little thing. And Transylvania Boogie is... God, it's been a long time since I've heard the original version of that.
Yeah, and then it's like the whole... See, this one is interesting because they do like a whole medley of like pretty much from Pound for a Brown to Oh No just flows together.
Yeah, and I like how Orange County Lumber Truck is 46 seconds long and then goes into Oh No, and then we go back to a long part of Orange County Lumber Truck to close out the album. Which is something that he's always done, that I do like. Whenever he does Torture Never Stops, a lot of the times he'll do part of it, and then they'll do a bunch of random shit, and then he'll go to the last part of it on some of his live albums, and they kind of do that here. But I'm a bigger fan of Orange County Lumber Truck than I am of the Torture Never Stops.
Yeah, that absolutely. That's kind of what I was getting to earlier. Is like I'm a way bigger fan of that, and it's like, yeah, it's interesting because it's, you know, when they do Orange County Lumber Truck, that last part of Orange County Lumber Truck, when it becomes really overdriven, just takes on a life of its own in a way that I think is really fun, and that a lot of his later live staple tracks don't do.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you rate this album?
This is I want to rate it high just because of it being Early Mothers, but I think with how bad, and I don't want to say it sounds bad, it just does not sound great. I mean, it's at least a 7, just because of the interesting stuff happening on here, and you get this cool sort of stage show on the first half, and then the second half is just a lot of great fucking songs done really good. It's just, I wish that we would get a proper remaster of it, because what's so weird is a lot of those, when they started re-releasing all those Zappa albums in 2012 and all that, when they were doing the big catalog remaster, a lot of them went back to the original vinyl mixes. A lot of them fixed up a lot of the Ryko disc errors, but then they sort of just stopped halfway down the line and just threw them on a new disc, it feels like, instead of really doctoring them up like they did. Yeah,
it's weird.
But this is one of those, I think at the same time too, that the people re-releasing them, you know, they were like, what is the most essential thing that we should fix? And what is here just to be here? Like, since it's an official Zappa release, we'll just throw it on a new disc and clean it up slightly. So I feel like this, maybe they were like, you know, are people really gonna buy this one if we re-release it? Is it worth spending the money to do all this extra work on it instead of just throwing it on a disc? Like, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that. I think, I feel like this is one that at some undecided point in the future, maybe they'll be in like an expanded version of this, maybe not, who knows.
Yeah, I mean, because we did at least get the original vinyl mix of Reuben and the Jets on Greasy Love Songs, and, you know, some better sounding versions of We're Only in It for the Money on the Lumpy Money, which is weird.
Although I will say I bought the vinyl of Cruising with Reuben and the Jets earlier this year because I love that album.
Yeah.
It is close. It is very, you know, Greasy Love Songs is like perfectly serviceable, but like the drum sound on Greasy Love Songs is the original vinyl. It's clearly the same drumming, but it doesn't have that gunshot quality.
Yeah, that snare is such a weird sounding snare to me.
And I don't know whether the tapes have deteriorated over time You know, it's possible that happened. You know, it's possible that they just, whatever remastering process they put it through resulted in that. But it's very clearly the same drumming.
Yeah.
But the original vinyl, it's softer, it's more mellow. It doesn't have that sharp, like you said, that snare, that gunshot snare sound.
Yeah, that snare is so distracting for me a lot of the time.
I don't mind it on Greasy Love Songs because, like, Cruising with Ruben and the Jets is a kind of uncanny album anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it's the world's greatest avant rock collective doing a bunch of straight up late 50s West Coast doo-wop, you know?
Yeah, it's motherfucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
Which,
but,
like, that snare is distracting for me, but I can easily get past it, because everything else just sounds good. But, yeah, I don't know what their plan is for this album. It might just remain a afterthought.
Yeah, I don't know, because they have released Classic Mothers live album. I mean, not a lot, but they released, you know, Road Tapes Volume 1, which is, it's the quality is not, it's not bad, it's not amazing, but it's an interesting record, and it's definitely worth, you know, checking out if you like Classic Mothers. And then there's some, as I said, there's some Beat the Boots stuff where the quality is really poor, but it's fascinating to hear the music if you love that version of the band.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I give this a 7.
Yeah. So, before we move on, let me smoke a cig. Alright, we're back. And we're down to the last two, man.
Yeah.
And we are on...
We're finally within sight of the finish line.
Yeah. And we're on the Yellow Shark, which is the final album released right before he died, I believe. Or
very shortly, I believe.
Or maybe it was right after he died, was it?
It was right before, because it was released in November and he died in December.
Oh, okay. And probably the most...
Almost exactly a month before he died.
Damn. And probably the most depressing ass album cover in Frank Zappa history. Just up there looking like a frail ass old man. Looking older than he actually is, man. Just, you could tell that...
yeah, looking a lot older than he was. Because if that was... I mean, this is recorded a year before it's released. If that picture is from that time, he would have been like 51 in that picture.
Yeah.
Or it's like, you look at that cover, this man, it looks at least 65.
Yeah. And a very just unhealthy 65.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a very healthy 75.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
But
yeah, no, I'm sure you've seen, because it was in one of those kind of clickbaity things that get shared around a lot. But like this is like in Tom Waits' top 10 albums.
Yeah, this is one of Tom Waits' favorite albums, and I can see why, man.
There's a quote that it's a great quote, and it's been I remember when I saw that I was like, that's an incredible quote. Now it's on the Wikipedia, which is that Frank governs with Elmore James at his left hand and Stravinsky at his right hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this album is an incredible way to end the Frank Zappa career.
Say what?
This is an incredible way to end the Frank Zappa career.
Yeah, because it's something I've mentioned a handful of times on just about every episode, is that he always wanted to be considered a serious composer.
Yeah.
And this is, you get bits of that here and there throughout his career, but this is probably the moment where he had been around long enough, and you've got the ensemble modern, you've got this classical group that I believe they went to him instead of him just picking people. These guys came to him and said, look, we want to do your songs, all classical instruments, and we're even going to do songs that you said are completely unplayable by humans, like G-Spot Tornado. And if they were to make a biopic of a Zappa movie, like a Zappa movie, this would be where the movie ends, right? Like,
yeah, this if you're gonna make the Oscar bait, like Frank Zappa biopic, like you would probably be like, it would be like his childhood. You'd probably do like a little bit of the early Mothers, falling out with Herb Cohen, and then this would be like the emotional climax at the end of the film, and you're ending.
Yeah, it would be.
This would be the scene in David Lynch's The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
Where the Elephant Man goes to the theater and everybody is like giving him a standing ovation.
Yes.
Like this is that moment.
This is
in a Frank Zappa biopic.
Yeah, very much like the ending of Chaplin with Robert Downey Jr., where he sees the Great Dictator being shown, and this is definitely where that movie would end if they were to do a Zappa movie. Definitely Oscar baity, Zappa bio movie. But this is some people. This is the first time you feel like the man got the respect that he deserved within the real pompous sort of community, and the real pretentious community. And I've always loved the way Zappa's songs sounded in orchestral form. And this, like, I love the shit out of London Symphony Orchestra. I love the shit out of the orchestra stuff on Lumpy Gravy. But this, to me, is probably the best orchestral Zappa album out there.
I would agree with that. Something I like about this,
because you feel the love in the playing, you feel the respect in the playing.
Yeah.
But,
and it's like,
so what were you saying?
A lot of what's on here is like these early compositions he wrote when he was like a teenager.
Yeah.
Like the Dog Breath Variations and Uncle Meat and Pound for a Brown, and it's like everything coming back around at the end of his life. I also really like there's a lot of piano stuff on this album, and it made me realize, I'd always kind of known, but it made me realize that Frank Zappa wrote piano stuff really, really well.
Yeah.
Which is impressive, because I don't think he played keyboard, and if he did, he didn't play it much.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But no, it's really, really good stuff. A lot of it is the stuff that really, really stands out to me is the Uncle Meat stuff, like Bebop Tango, The Girl in the Magnesium Dress, Food Gathering in Post-Industrial America, which is just wild. And of course the live version of G-Spot Tornado.
Yeah.
Which is just incredible.
Yeah. It's just the level of care that orchestra paid to these songs is worth the price of admission alone. It is. I mean, all I can really just say is how good it is all the way through.
Oh yeah, no, it is a phenomenal album, and for a final album within his life, it is a remarkable way to close out the Frank Zappa discography.
Yeah, it damn sure is. It damn sure is. But yeah, this is where, like, if you had a Zappa movie, this is where it would end. Yeah, you'd even get some of the '80s stuff. You get the sad part where he finds out he's got inoperable cancer, and
the band breaks up. You know, it's
yeah.
Like you get like some flashbacks to like Flo and Eddie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, you have to have the testifying in front of Congress. You know?
Yeah.
The biggest problem with doing the Zappa movie, and I say this as a massive Zappa fan, he was a really weird-looking guy.
Yeah, it would be hard to find anyone to play him, voice-wise, look-wise, all of that.
Yeah, like there are people like. There are people where like them being weird is an advantage because you get stuff to work with. Like I haven't seen a lot of it, but like the guy who plays ODB on the Wu-Tang Clan TV.
Yeah, like that guy who plays Old Dirty Bastard on that series. It feels like Old Dirty Bastard has risen from the grave. He has straight up resurrected. This is not an actor. This is the Old Dirty Bastard on this fucking show.
Yeah, like sometimes you could do that, but I feel like with Zappa, it's too much. It's that he had such a distinctive voice, that he was such a distinctive looking person.
Yeah, like, it's going to be hard to find somebody who could do the voice and have the look at the same time.
Exactly.
Like me, I can't even think of any actor right now working who could do it.
No, I can't think of any actor.
I mean, the hair, and then too, you got to think about it. You know, the actor they might choose might look right with the long hair, but then when you get to '80s short hair Zappa, he probably won't look right.
It's not like he's not like you can't do what Love and Mercy did, where like you have two different actors playing old and young, because you know the way Brian Wilson looked changed drastically throughout his life.
Yeah.
Just that man kept putting on weight, losing weight, like sometimes in the span of a single year. It's like you have a lot of liberties with Brian Wilson because of the way he looked over the years.
Yeah.
You don't really get that with Frank Zappa.
Yeah, that would be some hard shit. But it would be cool. It would be cool to see in the movie, because you could have when you got the testifying against Congress, you can have somebody playing Dee Snider come up in there. And what's even funnier is you could probably just get the real Dee Snider to come in there, because he's looked the same for 30, 40 years.
Yeah, he really kind of does. Well, the thing is, like, there was at some point a made-for-TV movie about those hearings, and they had somebody playing Zappa, and the delivery was not bad, but the guy looked nothing like Zappa.
Wow, I need to find a clip of that.
And I I just remember it took me a minute. Like, he has this bit where he walks up to some people in a record store and he's talking about, in 1968, they censored something on my album. It was not until that point in the clip that I realized, this is supposed to be Frank Zappa. I was like, it's just somebody with a funny mustache and goatee. But yeah, I give this album a 10.
Yeah, it's definitely a 10. Perfect way to close out the albums of his career. Perfect way to pay respect to an incredible musician. And I mean, I don't know, just every single thing about this album is perfect.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and this. So next, you got a year later, basically, end of October, beginning of November, Civilization Phase 3, the last album we will talk about in this 3-year, 6-podcast, probably like 12-hour at this point.
Probably so.
Honest.
Probably so. And this right here is a phenomenal album to me. Civilization Phase 3 is amazing in the way that...
Yes, it is.
The way it connects to the piano people from Lumpy Gravy, the way it uses old recordings, the way it uses new dialogue recordings, the way he mixes the synclavier with real orchestral music is so seamless to the point where sometimes you can't ever tell when it's the synclavier or the orchestra. And it is some of the best sounding synclavier music that he's made. It's better than Jazz from Hell. It's better than some of the recordings on some of his random 80s albums. It's like, damn, you could tell this is the moment where he really figured that machine out. Because if you listen to the early synclavier stuff he was making, it sounds like that machine is about to break the fuck down.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it is cruder, it's more harsh, but this shit gets creepy, man. This shit gets haunting. It is uneasy feeling, but then at the same time, it can get real quirky and silly. And I love that. Huh?
No, you finish off.
I love that we even get that annoying laugh from Lumpy Gravy back.
The turkey dude coming back.
Man.
I was listening to this last night, I was like, how much of this piano people stuff did Frank record in 1967?
Seriously.
It's like, you can tell it's from 1967.
Definitely.
And that's what fascinates me about this album is that it is like the ultimate like conceptual continuity. Like, he is mixing so much stuff together. Like, you have like Motorhead Sherwood and the Turkey Man in 1967 interacting with like Moon Unit and some actor in 1993. It's like, it is very, very strange. It's one of the things I like is the whole album is dark, but like it starts off sort of whimsical dark.
Yeah.
Like, in the way that a lot of Lumpy Gravy is whimsical dark. I think what we said in the first episode is that it's like if you go to the Black Lodge and everybody's just chilling there. Bob's not killing anybody. None of the evil from Twin Peaks is there. It's just a fun time.
Yeah.
That's kind of how this starts, but as it goes, it gets darker and darker, and then you get like. When I was listening to this morning, I was telling somebody about it. I was on DO5, and I'm like, yeah, I'm listening to Frank Zappa contemplate his own mortality through computer music.
Yeah, that would be the end of that, and Beat the Reaper, and...
Yeah, and then Waffenspiel.
This shit...
It is heavy. It is a heavy album by the end.
Yeah. This ain't CNN. I like that a lot of the tracks are just a minute to a minute and a half, 23 seconds. It's all real short. But each disc is 56 and 57 minutes long.
Yeah. It is a long double album.
And
it is a very long double album.
Everything just flows and segues so perfect.
And it is, so the story I was telling in the intro is that so years ago, actually no, I was confusing that. Last year was either at the beginning of last year or the beginning of it, or no, it was either the end of last year, beginning of this year, when we were first talking about doing this episode. We almost did this in like March. I listened to all of these albums, and I did what I did last night, which is it got to be super late, and I was like, oh, I'll put this on, and then I'll lie back and in the dark, and I'll absorb it, and I fell asleep partway through it. And then I woke up, and I was having like a small anxiety attack. It was like I am not feeling safe. My heart is pounding in my chest, and weird Frank Zappa computer music is happening in the background.
Yeah.
And it was like that has happened to me twice. The first time I was in the middle. I was in the middle of On the Corner by Miles Davis. I fell asleep. I woke up in another 70s Miles Davis composition. In the same situation.
Yeah, this is an album you definitely do not want to fall asleep to.
Yeah, this is an album. I've not done this, but this is an album that I cannot imagine would be good to do drugs to.
Yeah. I can see this album being really fun, high on after smoking a joint.
But don't do acid to this.
Yeah, don't fuck with acid. You know, you might have a bad trip. But yeah, maybe smoke weed to this one. I can see it being amazing on some weed. But man, just the level of technicality on these is, I've always been disappointed with his Synclavier music, because I'm like, number one, it all doesn't sound good to me. It's interesting, but at the same time, yeah, it's technical as fuck music, but it's not as impressive coming from a computer and not human hands. So
yeah, I feel that.
Nowhere near as impressive as his early stuff. But on here, it is impressive. I don't know. There's just something different about this. Maybe it's the mixture of the organic music with the computer music. It's weird. A lot of it sounds like early video game music, Sega songs and shit. But
it sounds better than that. But I see what you're saying. Like it sounds like
it don't sound like shitty chiptune music, but it sounds good as some.
It sounds
toward the end of Sega's run, when music started to sound fairly real in video games.
Yeah, I was gonna say it reminds me a little bit of that era in like the tail end of the Super Nintendo, beginning of like the PlayStation. And, when video game systems had gotten to where you could get, like, really good banging soundtracks, but they couldn't sound like real instruments just yet. Yeah. So you have a lot of, like, weird MIDI strings and stuff like that in your video game soundtracks from that era. This isn't MIDI. Like, he apparently sampled almost everything onto the Synclavier. Yeah. That's on here, but it has that feel to it.
Yeah, it's got that computerized, inhuman vibe and I think that's also part of what makes this album so uneasy, is because you've got this mixture of man and machine together that is weirdly soothing and just uneasy at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's really it's, again, like we said the last time, it's a really remarkable album. Something that fascinates me, and I feel like I've said that, take a shot for every time I've said something that fascinates me. You'll die about alcohol poisoning before we get halfway through this episode. It creates almost like a lore for the piano lead.
Yeah. Because I didn't know, when I was first listening to Lumpy Gravy, I didn't know that they were called piano people, I just thought it was random ass fucking dialogue strewn throughout, and hearing it kind of be expanded upon on here, it's weird that this album, it does feel like a continuation of Lumpy Gravy so many years later.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. It's so different because Lumpy Gravy is so scrappy,
Yeah.
It's a very small album. It's very clearly, it's the product of a master, but it's a master who is dealing with, sort of limited circumstances, relatively limited technology and budgets.
Yeah.
Whereas this is by the end, this is like one of the ultimate like DIY albums,
Yeah.
of like taking something that was not designed to do this and using it to make something just awe-inspiring. And it's the source of this joke a friend of mine and I have about, there's a lot of things that, like Frank Zappa is one of those dudes where it's like, Frank Zappa is like, I know if Frank Zappa was alive today, he would probably be getting into feuds with people on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I don't have to see that, but by the same token, it's like, oh my God, what would Frank Zappa do with Ableton?
What's crazy is, I would love, we've got an alternate universe where Zappa found the cancer early, or maybe didn't even get cancer. And
yeah.
And could you imagine if he would have lived long enough to actually see electronic music get perfected over the years?
Yeah. It's like,
and
I want to know what that world looks like.
Yeah. I mean, when you get certain electronic artists, like, for instance, like Skrillex, and some of the incredibly complex ways he puts noises together on some of his earlier music, it's got a Zappa vibe to it, even though it's definitely structured as fuck. But I could only imagine what the fuck Zappa would do with that kind of technology.
The Zappa fans are gonna have our heads, man.
Yeah.
First we didn't like the '80s, a lot of the '80s stuff, and now we've compared Frank Zappa to Skrillex.
Well, yeah, I'm not really comparing him, but I'm saying like Skrillex.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, Skrillex beats on especially like the Bangarang EP and the Scary Monsters EP.
There's some really interesting Skrillex music in it.
Yeah, the way he would string noises together to be part of the melody, it reminds me of some of the weird ways Zappa would string noises and shit together. But yeah, purists are gonna be like, you fucking idiots, da da da.
It's as like I'm saying, it's fascinating. This is an album I feel like almost is like, this is an album that is very simple and extremely complicated at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I feel pretty secure in saying a lot of it is about Frank Zappa dying of cancer.
Yeah, it's like, let me finish as much of this as I can right before I'm out of here.
Yeah, and of course this was years and years later, so I don't know if this is like accurate to the times, but like there was an interview years later, I guess, where Gale said that, you know, when he was done with it, he said, "I've done everything that I can."
Yeah. I've seen that before too. And what's even crazier, going back to you know, the possibility of him not dying, I will never forget that when Serge Tankian of System of a Down released his second solo album, Imperfect Harmonies, which I will never forget that there was some review of that album where the guy said, "This album sounds as if Frank Zappa had lived to see electronica music and the Bush administration." And I always, before I heard that album, I always thought, damn, man, that's probably gonna be amazing. Then I heard the fucking album, and I was like, this is garbage. It's some of the worst shit that Serge has done, for me at least. But I will never forget that fucking review that just misled the fuck out of me.
I remember, I forget what video of you guys you bring that up, but I remember that. And I'm like, I like Serge Tankian, but
like, I do too.
I would not compare him to Frank Zappa.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, and the Imperfect Harmonies is, to me, at least the worst album he did. I mean, to me, the EP that he did earlier this year was phenomenal. You know, but I don't know. Imperfect Harmonies just does not work for me. It's too soft. It's way too soft. But I will never understand what was going through that guy's mind when he fucking said that.
Somebody doesn't like Frank Zappa as much as we do.
Yeah, but at the same time, somebody is probably listening to this part of the podcast going, well, I don't know what the fuck was going through your mind. Talking about Skrillex reminds you of Zappa.
Well, you know, we're the worst Frank Zappa fans on the internet.
Yeah, we're the worst Zappa fans on the internet. Worst Korn fans. We're just the worst fans of everything.
We're worst Deftones fans. Yeah, so I give this a 10, but this is an album that just I am not bumping this album very often. Like,
yeah.
It is something I throw on about once a year, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
It's one of those, I gotta get it out of my system kind of things.
Yeah.
In fact, last night when I was listening to it, it was probably the first time I had listened to it in a couple of years. Probably since I got it. And I forgot. I always remember liking it, but I forgot how good it really was. Until, but weirdly enough, it says here that when it was first released, it was only released on the on his website, and it apparently wasn't a part of the remaster campaign. But weirdly enough, I bought it brand new on Amazon.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know because I found mine used.
Like, it even came with that white Barking Pumpkin slipcover.
Oh, from Amazon?
Yeah.
Wow. Mine didn't have that. 'Cause, again, I found it used. it's one of those ones where it's like most of the time you find Zappa used, it is the old shitty Ryko discs.
Yeah, or the double Rykos where they combine two of his albums on one disc.
Yeah,
that annoys me so much.
Yes, or it's the ones that like everyone had. And so like when I found that, I was like, wow, I've never seen this before. It's $12. I'll buy that.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But yeah, no, it was not part of the remaster campaign. It has really cool packaging.
Yeah, the packaging is great. The booklet on the inside is fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good stuff. It's I think it might have actually, now that I think of it, I think I remember that it won some sort of award for the packaging. Yes, it did. It won the 1995 Grammy for the best recording package.
And isn't that a weird Grammy to have? You know,
that is like the Grammy equivalent of Frank Zappa after his death being accepted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by Lou Reed, who hated Frank Zappa throughout his life. Like, that's such a weird backhanded compliment, you know?
Yeah. Because now, with all these issues that they're putting out now with, you know, all the interesting packaging for these Zappa albums that they've been dropping recently, like the Zappa New York 40-year 5 box is in a pizza box and a New York style sewer cover, you know, like, and then which one has the Zappa Candyland style board game that comes with it?
Man, I don't know. They've been dropping so much live Zappa stuff that I have like fully lost track of it.
Yeah, they've done a couple of the Halloween shows. This year they released the Zappa 88, the last U.S. show.
That I'm actually interested in hearing.
They've done, I guess, Zappa original motion picture soundtrack 3 CD, but I'm like, I saw that documentary and I don't remember 3 CDs worth of music being played in that documentary.
I still need to see it.
It was really good, man. It was really good. Probably the most definitive Frank Zappa documentary we'll probably ever get, and for it to be made by Alex Winter of Bill and Ted is interesting.
Oh God, I was watching some. This is like Alex Winter trivia. This I was watching somebody's coverage of the horrible Smosh movie.
Oh, I remember that, but I had never seen Smosh before, so the movie was not on my radar.
He directed that.
Oh, wow.
Alex Winter directed that.
Interesting.
And it's so funny because it's like you got Freaked, which is a fun movie.
I love Freaked.
Freaked is so much fun. Freaked is like I was saying to somebody because I was like, Freaked is like the good movie version of Nothing But Trouble with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Like Freaked is the version of that idea, that kind of like this is a massive celebrity's vanity project. It flops so bad that it basically tanks their career for decades. Like Freaked is that thing if it was.
Yeah.
But it's like, damn, a thing that one of the dudes from Bill and Ted made not only did it tanked so hard you could watch the whole thing free on YouTube now.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
like, Butthole Surfers had something to do with Freaked.
Did they?
Yeah, I believe it was supposed to be a lot of their music in the movie. I have to look it all back up, but I think Butthole Surfers, something went down.
They did do a bunch of stuff for that movie.
Which I wish they would re-release their damn catalog, because they got some albums that are hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, when I was trying to get more of their stuff last year, it was like all out of print, and it was wild to me, because I remember when the Butthole Surfers were like you could just walk into a record store and you could find multiple Butthole Surfers. Yeah. Like, and so it's weird to me that their stuff suddenly became hard to find, but I suppose it's less supply and demand. But how do you rate this album if you haven't already?
This one, I think it's a 10. But it's a 10 that I don't go back to a whole lot. Like you said, I gotta get it out of my system every once in a while. It's definitely not a Zappa album. It's not a go-to for me.
No.
But it's just damn good for what it is. For it to be the final bit of brand new material, I think it makes up for, at the time, his final album of brand new material, which was Jazz from Hell. I think it makes up for that. Because, like, Jazz from Hell is cool, but at the same time, it's like, I have no desire to go back to it.
Yeah, I can feel that. Like, I like Jazz from Hell a lot more than you do, but at the same time, it's like, man, I get it. It is so primitive sounding.
Yeah, like, it's interesting, it's cool, but I'm never like, to me it's there to fill up that hole in the Zappa discography.
Yeah. But damn, I mean, can we even do this? Like, the last couple videos we've been like, rank the discography from 1 to 10, but I don't even know if we can rank it, if I can rank a discography this big.
Yeah, as far as ranking the discography, I would say that I could say it's a 10, because there's more in his full discography that is phenomenal, that the lackluster stuff doesn't hurt any bit of it.
I'm gonna say that Frank Zappa's entire discography, I'm gonna give it, I think I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Because considering how much he put out, some of it was not, they all can't be zingers.
Yeah.
And he has a relatively small number of albums that I do not like, considering everything that he put out. So, yeah, it's in as much as I can rate it. There are periods of Zappa's discography that get like a 10 out of 10. There are periods that get like a 6 out of 10. It's more positive than negative, but the quality does vary quite a bit.
Damn sure does, especially once you get through, which to me, from Freak Out to You Are What You Is, and maybe even Ship Arriving Too Late, and maybe on a good day, The Man from Utopia. I would say probably from Freak Out to Man from Utopia. I think everything is pretty flawless to an extent, because even before then you've got the Shut Up and Play Your Guitar stuff, which is definitely not essential, but if you take those out, I would say it's all pretty flawless to an extent. Even though Ship Arriving and the Man from Utopia really showed the quality slipping away.
Yeah.
I would say from Freak Out to Man from Utopia is probably all the way through, like, everything is pretty much fucking worth it. But after that
I would
is...
definitely agree with that.
Yeah, starting with Baby Snakes is when
Like,
things get like, on the, alright, we're at this point of the discography now.
yeah.
I keep forgetting that Them or Us is a studio album, you know, like.
Yeah, because it's basically the last one.
Yeah, like it's the last one before the Synclavier took over everything.
Yeah. And it's kind of like it's probably the best of his, like, deep into the 80s studio albums, but, like, it is not one that I reach for very much.
Cause like Thingfish, I think Thingfish would have been a lot better if it wasn't repurposed music.
Yeah, if they had actually, like, Thingfish has problems that I think are going to exist in any version of Thingfish.
Yeah.
But I think if he had written original songs, if he had gotten the thing actually staged, and, you know, like, if Thingfish was a cast recording from an actual show that exists, I think I would have a lot fewer problems with it than I do.
Yeah, because, I mean, Thingfish, I think, would have been better with original music as opposed to just reusing Zappa songs, but I like it just because of how many balls that album has. Like, that album has a big set of balls. Like, you barely could get away with it when it came out, but you will never be able to make an album like this today.
Got made. His record label, I'm pretty sure, dropped him because of that album.
Yeah.
Like the people who were distributing that album, I'm fairly certain they dropped it because of the content.
Yeah.
Because it's a like an hour and a half of Ike Willis talking in his minstrel show voice.
Yeah.
Terry Bosco talking about being a gay man.
And fucking a briefcase, and it's an odd album. I'm gonna fuck this briefcase.
That is probably the strangest in a like. I feel like the strangest Zappa album is either Thingfish or Cruising with Ruben and the Jets.
Yeah, it's in a sea of strange. Thingfish is definitely one of the strangest.
Because you have Thingfish, which is one of the strangest things I've ever heard. And now you have Ruben and the Jets, which is so normal.
Yeah.
It is so normal. There is a story. I was. Again, I have this whole idea of, like, going back and reviewing the original Mothers in, like, 20-minute videos and so forth. And I was doing all this research, and there was this. It was like the story we brought up, which is the story everybody knows, that the original copies of Ruben and the Jets shipped without the Mother's name anywhere other than.
Yeah, and everybody thought it was a band called Ruben and the Jets.
And all of these lame, like, 35-year-old squares were getting down to this doo-wop music. But like, there was a story that, like, that it would go to these stations. These stations would just throw away the Mother's records when they came in. They would play the album. They would get down to it, and the Frank Zappa, I guess, throughout the like late '60s and early '70s, would have people in their 30s coming up and being like, "Hey, we really like Cruising with Ruben and the Jets.
Yeah, that is a great damn story.
But yeah, there is no other discography like the Frank Zappa discography.
Yeah, there really isn't.
There are people who have released as many albums or more albums than Frank Zappa, like Buckethead.
Yeah.
But I don't think I like Buckethead a lot. I don't think Buckethead, at least as a songwriter, I don't think Buckethead has quite the same level of talent. Like as a guitarist, that's another level entirely. As a songwriter, I don't think I've heard a decent amount of Buckethead, and it's not stuck in my head the same way a lot of Zappa sticks in my head.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Like I love some Buckethead, but I gotta be in the mood for it.
Yeah.
I have a handful of Buckethead albums, and they're all great. But the dude just drops so much stuff that a lot of it you can only get at his shows and stuff, and it's just hard to get. Like, crazily enough, with Zappa having a discography that is unlike anyone else, it's easy to get it all at a fairly cheap price, which other artists who have massive discographies like that, it's harder to get a hold of a lot of that stuff. Like Flaming Lips is another one that has a big, massive discography that is interesting all the way through, but a lot of that, especially the early stuff, is fairly hard to get a hold of.
Somebody else like that is Sun Ra.
Yeah, Sun Ra too. The only bit of Sun Ra, I have maybe 5-6 Sun Ra albums that I found them all at a pawn shop many years ago. But yeah, it's hard to get a hold of his stuff. Especially
I picked up a huge chunk of his stuff last year, but a lot of that was Discogs, a lot of that was getting lucky on eBay.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like a lot of Sun Ra stuff physically is not in print anymore.
Yeah. And it's another one with Devin Townsend. You know, it's hard to get a hold of a lot of early strapping young lad, and he releases so much shit all the time. It's hard to get a hold of everything. The dude's just got a massive ass discography.
Yeah.
I mean, some bands in the span Zappa released 30 albums, a lot of bands might have only dropped 5.
Yeah.
But then there's other artists like Buckethead who will drop 20 in 1 year.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, no, that's the Zappa podcast.
Yeah, man.
Took us 3 years. We never really came up with a title for it.
Yeah, I mean, we just call it, is this phase 17 of the Zappa cast?
Is this phase 6?
let's do Fish, man.
Yeah, Fish we could definitely do. Hit me up in the next little bit, and we can figure out the time to do Fish, because we could definitely do Fish. I only have a couple more I need to hear before we can do studio Fish. Live Fish is like a Zappa tier pod. That would be like a Zappa level podcast.
Because another thing about
like 5 years we wouldn't be finished.
A big thing about Live Fish is you get a lot of the same songs, you know.
Yeah.
But to me, there are certain live albums that are essential, but a lot of times Trey's voice does not sound that great live.
Sometimes he doesn't even sound that good on the albums.
And a lot of times you'll hear a song that sounds really good on the album, and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to hear what this one sounds live. And then you hear it live, and you're like, ooh, this does not sound as good as it could. Like Free, for instance, on Billy Breathes. I do not like the way it sounds on Live in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I can feel that.
But yeah, I've been wanting to do a Fish retro for years, but I'll never be able to get Zach or Josh to. They're just not interested. You know,
Fish are very much not for everybody.
Yeah. And that is the truth. But it'll give me a chance to go back to a lot of the albums that I haven't listened to all that much, like Farmhouse and Round Room and that kind of wonky era right before they broke up.
Yeah, like that era of Fish. I have a handful of them. I have Round Room and I have Undermined, and it's like.
And I bought those at the fucking Dollar Tree, like 11, 12 years ago.
I found Undermined about a month ago at FYE for $2.
Yeah.
Like that's which I think shows you how well that album is regarded.
Yeah, like most people, I would. To me, it's the album before they broke up.
Yeah. I think that's how the band feel about it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can find me at the Rustic Reviewer on YouTube. Like I say every time, my channel name very much like Mystic Spiral. I've been thinking about changing the name, but I never actually do.
Yeah. And you know where to find our shit. You know, it's Bloody Chuckle Studios on the YouTube. Check out our Spotify, Monster of the Family, and Sticky Middle Finger. Check out our Patreon if you want.
They're gonna have a new album out pretty soon.
Who?
You.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're Sticky Middle Finger's got a brand new album coming. I've got a new album coming. Hopefully, and also right now, the next two albums that we're going to be working on is sort of a sequel to the Christmas compilation. It's going to be a Halloween themed compilation and a sequel to Cheddar Pawn.
That I'll be interested to hear all of those.
Yeah, Zach has already...
Especially the Cheddar Pawn sequel.
Yeah, we've always thought of, like, if we were to do a sequel, it would be Vingar in the house, because he's no longer on Lillian's body. So now he's in this nasty, disgusting hoarder house, and he interacts with different, other different rodents and parasites and pests. But Zach has already started writing like song titles and basic ideas, and I'm like, this shit right here, we could have never wrote this back in 2008. But it's gonna be a whole lot of fun, man, a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll be excited to hear it. So lovely people in the audience, we will come back some other time, probably talking about fish.
Yeah. It's where we'll call it the fish fry. And you'll spell fry with PH as well.
With a PH, yeah.
Oh my god. Well, alright, y'all. We hope you enjoyed the Zappa cast. And, we'll see you guys later.